choose. But rest assured, we can get in touch after this session to either advise or refer you to one of our trusted partners. And now it's time to get this event started. Thank you for joining us today. We hope you find our answers valuable. Our greatest reward would be to be a part of your journey to moving to France. And hopefully, it starts with this session today. We will pause briefly to allow all registrants to join. The session will begin shortly.
Good evening or good morning, everyone, depending on where you're based. Thank you for being here, tonight or this morning. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Eléonore, that I consider my dear friend, but is also head of Lexidy Immigration Office in France. Very knowledgeable and reputable firm. So Eléonore definitely is top-notch in our field. So tonight or this morning, we're going to cover everything from visas to citizenship application. And you can ask any questions you want. So if you have any questions, you can ask them in the Q&A section. So it should be on the bottom of your screen. There is also our beloved Nanny in the background, US expat herself, who lives in France with us now. So she's going to answer some of the questions that she can. But don't hesitate to send any questions our way. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. For those we cannot address tonight or this morning, so I'll say tonight, okay, because I'm in France, so I'll go by the French zone. But so we will send a follow-up email afterwards so that you can ask any follow-up questions, get in touch with Eléonore directly or Nani or us and our team. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to have your questions answered. Enough talking. Eléonore, if you don't mind introducing yourself and so that people know who you are and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Eléonore. I'm a French immigration attorney, and I'm working at Lexidy. We are a relocation firm. We are a law firm, and we provide all ranges of relocation services, from visa application to citizenship procedures, but also tax consultation, or registering in the French Social Security, exchanging your driver license, everything that you may need for your relocation journey to France.
Good, right? Exactly what we need. So we've had, and sorry, I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Fabien. I'm going to be your host this evening. And I'm the founder and managing director of FAB French Insurance and FAB Expat. And I have the pleasure of being the host for that's going to interview or ask the questions to Eléonore. So we got a lot of questions. So I'm going to deep dive right now. Some very interesting questions. So it's going to be a busy webinar, I'm sure. So Viv actually asked us if she can get a 6-month visa and then after use what she calls the Schengen 90 days allowance on top.
Oh, I know that's an interesting question. And we often have this also for 1-year visas that are not renewed on time. If you had a 6-month visa and you enter in France during the validity of the 6-month visa, at its expiration, if you're, of course, provided that you are allowed to stay in the Schengen area with your passport, for instance, if you're American or British, you can use the 90 extra days at the expiration of your visa in order to stay in France a little bit more.
Amazing. This is actually quite good news.
It is.
Brilliant. Good to know. Anthony is asking, I am now in my 3rd year of living in France with a titre de séjour, so residency permit, and no intention of returning to the UK. So I guess Anthony is British. So at some point, I will want to apply for permanent residence and perhaps citizenship. What are the timelines and tips you could share?
Yes, sure. I would need some time to answer this question. For the pluriannual, well, the 10-year residency card that we call Carte de Résident in French, and the citizenship application through naturalization, you can apply for both of these things after living in France continuously for 5 years. What do we mean by continuously? It means that you need to be living in France for at least 6 months, well, more than 6 months, at least 6 months and one day, during the last, in a year, during the last 5 years. Some of the conditions are the same. So in terms of timelines, it's 5 years. After these 5 years of continuous residency in France, you can apply for either the 10-year residency permit or French citizenship through naturalization. So some of the conditions are the same. So the 5 years, you need to show that you speak French, that you know the French culture a little bit, that you're economically self-sufficient, that you're not a burden to the French social security system. Of course, as you can imagine, having a 10-year residency card is a bit easier than getting the French citizenship. So what differs is, for instance, the level of French. It will be the requirements will be higher for the naturalization. The income requirements as well, they will have a more deep look at your situation if you apply for the naturalization. Also, all your personal, professional, private life will be examined by the French administration if you apply for citizenship, of course. For the tenure, it's a bit lighter. So 5 years of living in France, level of French, which is not too high, income, and that's basically it.
Okay, very good to know. Very good, actually. I've actually just seen a question that's, I think it's very relevant. We mentioned this right before we started this webinar. Is there still a path to citizenship with only foreign pension income? There are reports that this is no longer possible because indeed we've seen some rejections for example, British applicants who only rely on foreign income. So
Yeah, it's a tricky question. So as you might know, we have had a new piece of law this year that is giving instructions to the prefecture. It's not law that has been voted in parliament, so it does not really have the same validity in front of the courts. But still, it's some directives from the prefecture. And until now, so until the end of the year, the 31st of December this year, what is important is to show that during the last year you were able to generate enough income or you have sufficient funds to be autonomous and show that you're not a burden for the French system. From next year, they will have a look at your financial situation during the last 5 years. And well, for employees, then you have other specificities regarding their working contracts, especially on the last year before you make the application. We do not have anything stating explicitly that having a pension abroad is a reason for a rejection. But of course, the prefecture is going to check your situation globally and see where you have your center of interest, where you have your finances, etc., etc. From a strictly legal point of view, as long as you do not, as long as you're economically self-sufficient, you're not a burden to the states, this should be enough. Especially if you have other links with France, maybe your husband or wife lives in France with you, you have your kids here, you've been in France for a long time, and France is your home. This also will be taken into consideration. So I always tell my clients not to stress too much about this requirement because it's not as strict as it may seem, even if, of course, your file will look better if you have income from France.
Okay. Okay. So what you're saying is basically this is still technically doable. There's no new regulations. They may apply stricter set of rules, but provided with enough assistance. And if things go wrong, like you can legally appeal the
Yes,
decision. Because, okay.
absolutely, because the
And only a lawyer can do the appeal, I think.
yes, yes, for this, yes, especially because, as I mentioned, we have this new circular, these new directives from the prefecture, and we don't know how they're going to be applied.
Hmm.
And this will cause a lot of case law. I imagine, especially next year, we will bring a lot of cases to courts in order to see a little bit the position of
Hmm.
the courts and see, for instance, if you have a pension from abroad, if this is a stopping point or not. Also, as I said, underlining the fact that there are a lot of other aspects of your life in France that are looked
Hmm.
at. So it will be very interesting, actually.
Yeah, interesting times, really. Yeah, especially with what's going on internationally. Um, well, something on a different topic, but like Jill was asking, can we have an appropriate lump sum rather than income, to use for residency or visas? And if yes, can you confirm the amount that's necessary?
Sure. So for visa and residency, of course, you can have a lump sum. Um, It depends on the visa that you get. Of course, if you have an employee visa or if you
Hmm.
apply for the entrepreneur visa, it's necessary to show that you have been
I thi-
earning
uh,
money with your professional activity in France. If not, for instance, someone having the visitor visa, you can perfectly show a lump sum, and the threshold, and this is valid also for citizenship, is always the French minimum wage. They need to see that you have at least the equivalent of the French minimum wage, either in monthly installments, if you have some, I don't know,
hmm.
rentals or passive income, or as a lump sum on your bank account, for instance, or any other proof of funds that you may
And
give.
it can be a mix of both. Can it?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes, of
Brilliant.
course. Mhm.
Good, good. A very touching question from Marcia, who says, I'm 81 and healthy. Will I be able to get a 6-month visa at my age?
Well, I don't see why it shouldn't be. Of course, she will have to see with you, Fabien, about the health insurance, but if she's healthy, I imagine that's not going to be a problem for you.
Up until 99, we can. Yeah. So,
Okay.
Paula is asking, can you clarify, because actually it's connected, we touched base on this. Can you clarify the language exemption? So actually, is there anyone for citizenship and maybe for long-term permits?
Sure, sure. So for citizenship, it used to be 60 years old, and now it passed, well, from January next year, it will be 70 years old. So if you're 70, um, you, you can be exempted from passing the French language test. Another interesting thing to know on this topic, and this is valid also for long-term residency permits, is that if you have a health condition, if you're sick
Mm.
or if something prevents you to take the exam, we can also provide a certificate from a doctor saying that you cannot pass the French exam. And actually, I had a very interesting case on that topic. It was a client that was refused the 10-year residency permits, and we went to court and we won the case, and the prefecture was obliged to give him the 10-year residency. So we were very happy for him, even though, of course, he was a bit sick.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
mm.
the a very interesting question from Wade and Neshama. Sorry if I don't pronounce that right. Could you please clarify how the visa validation process interacts with the OFI? And the basically procedure timelines, and is the attendance at the OFI appointment required for all visa holders?
Not for all visa holders, but if you have a renewable visa, if you want to live in
Hmm.
France on a permanent basis, make France your home, you will need to go to the OFI eventually. So in order to validate a visa, there are different procedures depending on the visa that you have. For instance, the talent visa is a completely different process than the visitor one, where you have to validate your visa online during the first 3 months of the validity of your visa. It's nothing too complicated. It's an online process, and this triggers a notification to the OFI. Which is an administration for immigration and integration. And usually they will give you an appointment for a few months later. It takes a lot of time. I always have clients very anxious. 1 week after the validation, they ask me, "Oh, I didn't get my appointment. I didn't get my appointment." But sometimes you are going to renew your visa and you never receive the appointment, and that's okay. We can still work with that. And yeah, I think I answered the question.
Yeah, good. No, very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Another very good question from Peter, who was asking, will I always need to demonstrate basically the income or the savings for a carte de séjour, so a residence permit? And will PAX or marriage to a French national help my application for eventual citizenship?
Um, Yes, for marriage, not for PAX. For PAX, it can be useful if you apply for citizenship through naturalization, so the one I explained before, because it will still contribute to show that you have your family ties, private ties in France,
Hmm.
that you have a PAX from a French authority, so it shows that your links with the country are solid enough. But if you can apply for citizenship through marriage, I would recommend to do that because it's more protective and there is less discretionary power from the administration. So if we have a look at the conditions for citizenship through marriage, your marriage needs to be registered in France, and be very careful with this because I always have clients that got married abroad. They arrive in France with a French person. They arrive in France and they ask, "Oh, I will ask for a residency or a visa or citizenship through marriage." And my first question is, "Okay, was your marriage transcribed in the French civil records?" And when the answer is no, it's nothing too serious, but we are going to waste a lot of time because we have to contact the consulates of the country where you got married to make sure that they check the validity of the marriage and they send it to the French authorities, and this can take some time. So this is the first condition. Then you need also to show that you have been living together for at least 4 years if you're in France, 5 if you're abroad. And well, they'll have a look as well as the knowledge of the French culture, language, and these kind of things. But I would say that it's less, you have less uncertainty because it's a little bit like mathematics, if I can say. If you meet the requirements, you should have your citizenship through marriage.
Hmm.
While citizenship through naturalization, there is always a little bit of chance, if I can say, or it depends a bit on the prefecture that is going to check the application and what they will consider. It's a bit more blurry.
Okay. Actually, a very interesting and hopefully quick question from Mary. Can you have multi-citizenship? I have UK and Australian. Can I also have French, or do we have to give up the others?
So, well, in usually the answer is yes. You can have multiple citizenship, but we always need to check if there are bilateral treaties between the two countries that you hold the nationality from. Because some countries do not accept that their nationals have another
Hmm.
nationality. This is the case, for instance, for China. And other countries have a specific list of countries that they don't accept
Oh, yeah.
their nationals to hold the nationality. So
Okay. Well, good to know. Very good to know. Mark is asking a very good question, actually, because so you can start with certain type of visa and then change to another. This is possible, but is a very good question in regard to that. Is it possible to start with a non-working visa, so the visitor visa, and then convert to an entrepreneur visa? Is it possible, or the government will consider this that you entered as a false pretense?
No, no, this is definitely possible. Actually, last week I was working on a case like that, and the client got successfully his change of status from visitor to entrepreneur directly in France. So be careful with this because there is a lot of false information online, a lot of stress. I see forums and chats where people are completely panicking about that. The answer is that you can change your visa type, and this is valid for any type of visa as long as you have the renewable visa.
Hmm.
Any type of renewable visa allows you to change your status, provided that, of course, you meet the requirements of the next visa you're going to apply to. And so, yes, keep it in mind and don't look too much at on the internet because
Hmm.
unfortunately we have lots of wrong information on that topic.
You're right. Just hire Eleonore and you're all set. No, no. Well, a bit of ad doesn't hurt. Patrice is asking, I'm originally from Belgium and my wife's American. Does she needs any document beside a passport to live in France?
Yes, absolutely. She will need to apply for a residency permit as the spouse of an EU national. As you might know, the European Union have a set of rules to protect the family life of its nationals. So if you're Belgian, of course, yourself, you don't need to apply for anything or declare anything, but your wife can enter France with her American passport. And during the first 3 months of her stay in France, she will need to apply for the residency permit as the spouse of a EU national. This is very important. I always advise people to start the application before you arrive in France because those applications take a very long time to be processed. But it's worth it because you're going to get a 5 year residency permit right away with the right to work, which is completely different than other visa types. So that's really like the advantage of being married with a EU national. So you will need to show that you're married, that you're living together, that you have a healthcare valid for France, and that the couple has sufficient economical means to live in France.
Hey, great. Let me try to see. Can you live in France and pay taxes in Canada?
Yes, the answer is yes, but be careful because if you live in France if you live in France more than 6 months in a year, you need to declare your taxes in France. That does not mean necessarily that you're going to pay something because there are some bilateral treaties between France and a lot of countries, among which the US, the UK. But you need to declare it. That's really important. And if you need help, we have a in-house a tax department as well.
That's right. Yeah. Actually, an interesting question. If I come to France on the student visa, language immersion from the US, what is the amount of income I must show to be approved?
Oh, for the student visa, the threshold is really lower than for other visa types. It changes from year to year, but from what I recall, it should be around 700 euros per month, more or less. Something like this. We need to check the exact number, but it's more or less half of the French minimum wage.
Okay, great. Marshall is asking, can you discuss the renewal process of for visa holders? And by the way, personal anecdote, but I hate this word, visa renewal. I think it's confusing. I prefer to say
Yeah.
we convert that into a residency permit, or actually we don't do anything. We just apply for residency permit. But would you mind telling people how actually you can so convert your visa into a residence permit? How can they do that?
Sure, sure. It's a bit of a vague question because, as you might know, we have a lot of visas, a lot of residency permit. So the first answer is that it depends on the visa type or the residency that you have. But I would say that for the most common visas that I see, let's say entrepreneur, visitor, employee, what you need to do is to renew it at the prefecture of your place of residency. You have to know a little bit the prefectures because each of them has They try to have a common way of doing things, but it's still not 100% the case. So we need to check what's the process in the prefecture that you depend on. For some visas, this is done online on a special website that is called ANEF,
Mhm.
Administration Nationale des Étrangers. And it's yeah, an online process. They ask you some questions. You have to upload some documents. You validate the request, and they process it. If they need anything, they will contact you through a chat. And when your card is ready, you get a text message saying that you can pick it up at the local prefecture. But then you have other prefectures that even if this ANF website is in place, they still want you to go in person and submit some documents. And here again, the list of documents sometimes can depend a little bit on the prefecture and the agents that you see. So it's good to be prepared and to have a sound advice before to make sure that you don't miss anything, because I've seen a lot of persons that didn't know.
Mm.
So they do only through an F or through the prefecture portal, but that's not the way to do it in that particular prefecture. So
Okay.
be very careful, because then your residency expires and a lot of problems can arise.
Yeah, yeah. Well, basically, they have discretionary powers. They shouldn't, but they do. And so you need to follow the process of whatever particular prefecture you're applying from. Two very good questions. One from Kate, one from Sergey. I'll try to ask them in a row. Kate is asking, can I get, so 10 years carte de résident, and apply for naturalization in parallel?
Sure, and that's what I advise people to do, because the naturalization is very slow. It takes around, now it's like 2 years more or less, even more depending on where you live again. But yes, you have to come 2 years. So you cannot stay 2 years without a residency. So of course, at some point you will need to renew it. And if you can get the 10-year card, that's what you should do, because there is a lot of uncertainty around naturalization, and you want to make sure that you have the best possible residency. And the 10-year is the maximum you can get in France.
Good. Sergey is asking, before applying for naturalization, does it matter on what visa you've lived in France for the last 5 years, or does it make no difference?
No, well, in theory, it shouldn't matter at all. You can, even with a visitor, you can apply. But in practice, we have seen that as it's very discretionary and they take into account a whole set of things, in practice, we see that with some residency permits, you're more likely to have a first approval, especially if you're an employee or an entrepreneur. And I was mentioning this new piece of law that we received this year.
Mm.
In this, it's expression, it's really written and underlined that certain residency permit categories should be examined in a more favorable way, especially for the talent visas. And that's really written. So,
Okay.
of course, you can have more chances with one or another visa, especially if it's a working visa. But legally and theoretically speaking, you can apply even with any kind of visa.
Good. Good. Shayla is asking, very good question, actually. Are you allowed to work in France when you have a 10 years visa or permit?
Sure, the 10-year visa has the right to work inside of it. You don't have to apply for a working authorization as an
Mm.
employee or as an entrepreneur. You can work. And that's a little bit of the same as I was mentioning with the spouse of EU national residency. You have some residency where the working right is really attached to the
Mm.
type of visa or residency that you have.
Just because I'm seeing these questions pop up quite often, it's just to clarify, I'll answer this once. Uh, and for all, maybe, hopefully, I don't know. So, for example, Kevin was asking this, but so the French language levels. So, Eleonore, correct me if I'm wrong. So, no language test for basically 1 year visas. So, well, visas or residence permit. A2 for multi-use permit. B1 for the 10 years permanent resident card, and B2 for citizenship. Did I got that right?
Yes, but that's applicable in January 2026.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we forgot to say, yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
Well, I
it's
suppose everyone asking those questions is like about
Mhm.
to start a process. So yeah. Okay. Oh, good question from Michelle. Oh, well, sorry. I forgot one of the questions. Mohammed is asking, he's been in France, October 2024. So with a 1 year long stay visitor visa, applied to renew the visa, on May 2025. So this year, but didn't get any update from the prefecture. Any suggestions?
It's been a year, so
So May, yeah, he applied for the renewal May 2025. So this year, yeah.
okay, and
And
it
and basically the
expired.
visa is about to expire, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay, and when did the visa expire?
October, well, 15th of October, so like a week ago.
Oh, okay, okay. So nothing to worry about. Yeah, that's usual. The prefecture are very, very slow in processing the request. And what we do, unfortunately, we do it all the time now, at least twice or even more per week. We have to seize the court in an emergency process in order to get a provisory residency permit during the processing time of your renewal request. Because in a lot of prefecture, they take months before they get back to you. And in the meantime, you have an expired visa residency and nothing to show to the authorities. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's really concerning. But the good news is that we have some quick court processes, and for now, it's going very well. Usually, as soon as I send the request to the court, I get what I asked for before even getting a judgment. So there are solutions for that.
Bruce is asking something that I'm saying also quite often. I was granted a visa long séjour temporaire, so a VLS-T, not TS. It appears I'm required to return to the US within 1 year and have no option to tap into French healthcare, which, by the way, we call Social Security. So for those listening from the US, Social Security in France is healthcare, not pensions. So basically, he's asking, so what should he do? Like, is it normal? Yeah.
It depends on what you asked when you were at the consulate. Be very careful with what you say, the documents that you provide, the cases that you take, because I see it more and more often, unfortunately. So there are different solutions. It depends when you got your visa, but
He's asking, is there any options to stay longer and tap into Social Security after 90 days in France on a VLS-T?
what I would suggest is to apply for the correct visa, the renewable one, right away. You can do it even if you currently have a VLS-T. You can reapply. Don't let the consulate tell you that it's not possible, because it is. Sometimes you have to fight a little bit with them, but I usually ask my clients to reapply right away. Or, we have other means of actions. Another option would be wait until your visa expires and then make another visa application, a correct, renewable visa application this time. And the third possibility is to contest the delivery of the not renewable visitor visa. So those are the three solutions.
Okay. A very good question that I'm seeing also, because some people I've seen that one was in Portugal, and I've seen a few people which are from like the UK or the US, but have permanent residence in another EU state, in another EU country. And so, for example, one is asking, is it possible to transfer my permanent residency card from one of the EU countries to France?
Yeah, I get this question a lot, and there is a lot of confusion. The answer is no, not really. In any case, when you arrive in France, you will need to apply for the visa in which you meet the conditions. It can be visitor, employee, or any other type of visa, but we cannot just convert permanent residency in another EU country to a French one. And by the way, there is no such thing as permanent residency in France. The maximum you can get is a 10-year renewable residency permit card. So no, but the advantage of this situation is that you have you can choose. Either you make the application at the French consulate where you are currently residing. Either you can enter France with your permanent EU residency permit, and within the first 90 days of your stay in France, apply directly at the French prefecture. But you will not get a 10-year residency permit. You will get a 1-year permit likely, except if you fall within the talent residency permit category. And you will need to apply for a
Hmm.
specific visa, not a general 10-year visa.
Actually, so we can, well, in a way, bounce on this question. Kristen is asking something interesting. I've been getting a lot of flack from folks when I say I'm going to apply for a Profession Libérale visa. They are saying it's impossible or that many more people are being rejected. Is there any truth to these rumors?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say that. It's a complex application. There are a lot of documents to prepare. And again, I've seen that everywhere on the websites, Service Public, on the government's websites, the list of documents is not accurate. So, of course, if you prepare your application with the list that the consulate gives you or the list that you find online on the government's website, probably it's unfortunately going to be rejected because there are more things to show. It's a very administrative process with different steps. We have to apply for the working authorization, provide a lot of documents regarding your future business in France, your current activity, etc., etc. But if the application is well prepared, there is no reason for a rejection. We have a lot of entrepreneurs visa application, and usually it goes pretty well. It's more lengthy, it takes more time, it's a lot of papers and documents, but it works. And at the end of the day, you have the right to work in France, which is a big advantage respect to other visa types. Another advantage of the entrepreneur is that you will more quickly have a pluriannual residency permit. Like if you have a visitor, it will be 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, and you will not be able to have more than that until you have the continuous years of residency in France. So
Um,
no, I think it's
no, yeah, it's yeah,
good
definitely. Well,
option.
like you're saying, there's more steps involved, and I know there is like a pre-screening phase through the ANEF, I think, as well. Like you have to submit the business plan beforehand.
Oh yeah, it's not DNF. It's another French administration that is specialized for entrepreneur and checks the business plans and the project. But again, it's not nothing too difficult because, as I said, it's just a project. You don't have to run any existing business. You don't have to register a business in France before getting the visa. I like to keep things simple because it's already very
Good.
complex. So we just need to follow the steps, present what you want to do in France, and if we follow every step of the way, it should be fine.
Zenep, sorry if I don't pronounce that right, is asking also an interesting question. Does the 10 years, so which we call permanent residency card, actually expire after 10 years? Or do we need to apply again? Or does it automatically extend because it's permanent?
No, I just said that there is no such thing as permanent residency permit in France. The maximum we have is 10 years. And if you do nothing, no one is going to come and tell you that you have to do something.
Hmm.
So please, with any type of visa, any type of residency, 4 months before the expiration dates, do something, go to the prefecture, renew your residency because otherwise you can have more difficulties if you let it expire. So
Hmm.
it's 10 year, but it's renewable every 10 years. And the renewals of this type of cards are quite straightforward, so nothing to worry about.
So don't drink too much French wine and don't forget about the renewals.
Exactly.
Okay, Nicole is asking, is it possible to switch from a student visa to work visa while staying and submitting from France? Or do I have to go back to the US, for example?
So, provided that you have a 1 year renewable student visa or residency permit, you can do it directly from France. What is
Good.
problematic is if you have a 6 months student visa, in this case, you have to apply from your home country. But otherwise, you can do it from France, of course. Mhm.
Basically, the rule of thumb here is that if you don't have a renewable visa, you have to go back to your home country. And if you have a
Exactly.
renewable one, you can stay in France.
Exactly. And change to any type of different visa.
Good. Sarah is asking if we use a consultant like you, to apply for a visa, do we still have to attend the appointment for a visa applications, or is this dealt by the consultant?
You will have to attend the appointment eventually. Why? Because they will see your passport, check if you look like the picture in your passport, take your fingerprints, so no one can replace you, and you will need to go personally to the appointment.
Which is good. We're not yet robots, so we can
Yeah.
be replaced. Yeah, it's good. It's good. Um, Actually, this is, yeah, a question that I tend to be seeing quite often. Julie is asking, we have dual British and Canadian passports. Which passport should we apply with for a long stay visa, British or Canadian?
The one that you want. There is no advantage to have one or the others because both Canada and the UK allow you to stay in France for 90 days without a visa. So for me, it doesn't make any difference.
Great. Brilliant. Okay, so um, well, commercial question. Nicole is asking, what would be the general price range to schedule a consultation with you?
Oh, the first consultations are free of charge, so don't hesitate.
So generous, you see. Well, yeah, clever, pretty, and generous. Okay. After being in France, Kelly is asking, how do I start the process to obtain a carte vitale? So basically apply into French healthcare.
Mhm. So you first need to wait 3 months. We can start before because it takes a lot of time. So I even advise to start gathering the documents, etc. before. And you need to contact the CPM, so the um, healthcare administration that is next to the place where you live. And you submit your application, they ask for several documents, they process it. Usually they ask for complementary documents. There is a lot of back
Hmm,
and forth, and
of
don't be
course.
destabilized with that. This is perfectly normal. And when I see that, I even think that it's going well because that's normal. And after a few months, so quite a long time actually, they get you will get the carte vitale and be registered. So in between during this time, I always recommend to take a private healthcare, and you can speak to Fabien because
Thank
you
you.
never know what can happen and it takes a very long time. So don't take the risk. Don't think, oh, I will be there for 3 months and then I will be registered. No, no, no. It can take a very, very long time. So be sure that you are protected during that time.
Hmm. Neve is asking, can I keep renewing the one-year visitor visa beyond 5 years until I reach my 80th birthday to avoid the French examination?
Yes, you can.
Okay, that's it. Okay, one of the tips. Okay, I've seen some comments. Sorry, guys. Sometimes there's literally like more than 150 questions open. We're trying to assess the short questions. So sorry if we're skipping some of those. Again, you can reach out after this event to Eléonore directly, to Nani and our team. You can ask all of your questions over email. We'll send a follow-up email afterwards so that you'll all have the opportunity to have your question answered. Sorry in advance for those we don't address. Do I need any type of visa to own a property in France? Hilda's asking.
No, you don't. No, no, no. And the contrary is also true because sometimes I see people that think that they need to purchase or rent a house in order to get a visa. That's also not mandatory.
Okay. Faye is asking, is it true that it's more difficult to obtain a long-term visa if you're retired, as the French government prefers young people?
Oh no, absolutely not.
Oh,
Actually, it's the contrary. I find it
yeah.
more hard to get a visitor visa for young people than for older ones.
Worst case scenario, just say you like wine and cheese, French, and then you're good. No, kidding, kidding.
Yeah, and the
Uh,
most older you are, sometimes there is this assumption that you are more economically self-sufficient, you put more money aside, so usually it's easier than for other profiles.
Indirectly, could be Trevor's questions can be broadened, I would say, but it's saying, do we pay tax on our house sale in the UK? But basically, I think we can say like, well, if you have a property abroad, so not in France, and you sell it once you became a French resident, are you supposed to be paying capital gains or taxes?
Mm. Probably, but I'm not the expert here. I really advise you to take advice with my colleague who is a tax attorney, because I wouldn't like to say anything wrong.
Okay, great. Um, oh, I have residency in France, work in the UK. Can I get the dual residency?
Can
I
you
don't know what you call dual residency. It's not citizenship.
uh,
Sorry, Ross. Does that speak to you?
I'm not sure I got the question. Can you repeat?
Well, is living in France, works in the UK. Can he have dual residency? It says. Oh, well, okay. We'll skip here.
Not sure what that means.
Yeah, Ross, if you can specify, sorry. If my wife, Mario is asking, if my wife and I want to purchase an apartment in Paris for residency, what restrictions are there if we don't currently have French residency or citizenship?
There are no restrictions. You can perfectly own an apartment if you don't have any residency or visa.
Okay. Um, Very quickly, obviously, like you were saying, there's plenty, because Annie is asking, would be really helpful if you could just, kind of list the types of visas that are available. But just a
There
quick
are
sum up,
lots. There are dozens and dozens and dozens, like really a lot. You can't
the
imagine.
most popular ones,
But
maybe,
the most popular, I would say, would be, well, the visitor, the student, the employee visa, the entrepreneur visa. We have the internship visa. We have a lot of talent visa. That's a big family where you have a lot of different categories. For instance, visas for artists, visas for medical professions, visa for internationally renowned people, visas for company owners, visas for investors. There are all kinds of visa for because you have some health conditions that cannot be treated in your countries. So we have a lot of different categories. Mm.
Yeah, sorry, Ross actually specified dual citizenship indeed. So, well, France and UK, you can have dual
Oh,
citizenship, can't
yes,
you?
of
Yeah,
course. Yes, yes, yes.
brilliant, brilliant. Michelle is asking, I'm trying to be mindful of the time. We still have like a dozen minutes. If you're married to a Frenchman and the rules are all the rules as strict for applying for citizenship.
We spoke about that before. It's easier than with the naturalization. The conditions are a bit more mathematical, if I can say, and you have less discretionary power from the administration as long as you meet all the listed conditions. So your marriage needs to be registered within the French civil records. You need to be living with your together under the same roof for at least 4 years if you're in France, 5 if you're abroad. You need to have a certain level of French, etc., etc. As long as you meet those conditions, there shouldn't be any rejection. So if I see someone that can apply for French nationality through marriage or and through naturalization, I would always advise to apply for the nationality through marriage first.
Yeah, okay, good advice. Curtis is asking something. I think it's good if we clarify this. Just to confirm, can I apply for a rolling 1 year visa? So basically a 1 year visa and then renew it solely based on income alone? Or do I need a lump sum as well? Like, do you need both income and savings or just either? Or
Anything is acceptable as long as you show that you have the amount that is required. So it can be monthly installments, a lump sum, passive income, working income. The important thing is to show that you have this money.
I think some are preparing for citizenship. So a very good question from Josh. Any details or information you can give the audience or share with them about the naturalization interview and like how to prepare for this?
Oh, you have a little book. It's called Le Livret du Citoyen, where you have a lot of questions, a lot of them. And well, the tip would be to study that book because normally the agent that is going to interview you will pick some questions from this book. So if you have a look at everything, you should be fine. And then it's more a conversation. They will ask you some things about the history of France or how the politics work or about the culture. It can be very different type of questions. And then you can start the conversation and don't worry too much if you don't have the exact answer to the question that they ask you, but you can still bounce back with something else, something similar, and drag a little bit the conversation to something that you feel comfortable speaking about. And basically, it's like they want to see that there is no red flags, that you speak fluent French, that you understand French values, French culture, French history. Yeah,
But
so
it's all in the book, isn't it?
it should be,
Mm.
yes.
Um, tell me if it's too technical, but Michelle is asking an interesting question. Is there any leniency for the language requirement for citizenship if you're a dyslexic? You know, she passed the B1 a couple of years ago, but is struggling to get to B2 probably because of the written exam.
I understand. That's an interesting question because one of the exemptions of passing the language exam for citizenship is if you have a medical condition preventing you to pass the exam, and that's
Oh, that
usually.
may qualify. Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's something that is accepted. What you need to do is have a certificate from a doctor explaining your condition and the fact that you cannot take the language test. And I've already done that for a few clients and it worked. So that's a possibility. It's good to know.
Okay. Uh, Christine is asking an interesting, well, he's actually sharing an interesting story. So, well, her husband is French. Apparently, she's English, yeah, British. An early retiree, 62 years old. She moved to Arcachon, almost neighbors, hello, in 2022. She had a 1 year visa, and then renewed into a 1 year carte de séjour, and then a 2 years carte de séjour, which expires in June 2026. What is the next visa she should apply for? It's kind of a chain,
Mm,
like 1 year
I
visa, 1 year permit, 2 years permit, and then what next?
it's not 5 years yet, so you
Yeah,
cannot apply for the
no,
10 year.
it's four. Yeah, it's four
Yeah,
still.
it's for, so you will need to renew the residency that you currently hold. If you're lucky, they will get you more than 2 years.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, quite simple actually. Um, oh well, very good to address. Can long-term visas be denied because a person is disabled or seriously disabled? For example, their husband is paraplegic, and this is his concern.
No, 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 it shouldn't be. Being healthy is not a condition to get a tenure or a pluriannual residency permit.
Okay, brilliant. Oh, well, interesting. Is naturalization possible on the talent visa?
Absolutely. And as I said before, um, it's encouraged. We have this new piece of law from the Ministry of Interior this year that specifically wrote down or asked the prefectures to examine more favorably the naturalization's application of talent passport holders.
A good question that actually is the first time I'm seeing this in the list. Marsha is asking, I believe there is a medical screening for a long stay visa. I think some people are scared that this is like an interview, you know? So can you share what this
Yeah,
appointment
no, it's
entail?
nothing. Like it's really a routine exam. They do it with everyone's. It's part of the convocation with the OFI. Usually they ask you to see a doctor, and really it's nothing to worry about. It's a very simple routine exam. And for some nationalities, for instance, British people, they can be exempted from this exam, provided that they submit a medical certificate from their doctor.
Okay. Um, okay. What doing? Okay. No, I'm sorry. I'm trying to read. You know, a male trying to do two things at the same time. We're terrible. I'm trying to read that, listen to you, and so. Okay. So, where can we get more information about how to prove marriage if we were married abroad, but the marriage wasn't transcribed in the French consulate? Well, basically wasn't recognized in France yet, or is not yet done.
Yeah, It's important to do the transcription as soon as possible because it can be quite lengthy and where you can find the information. So you can come to see us, but otherwise you can ask the consulates of the country where you got married, the
Okay.
French consulate of the country, and they will give you a list of documents to prepare.
Okay. I'm seeing quite a few questions about taxes. You can reach out to Lexidy. Like I was saying afterwards, I'm going to send a follow-up email maybe by tomorrow, but French time. And so you're going to have Lexidy's direct details and Eleonore's ones. So you can get in touch with her and her team and answer all of those questions. Okay, Wanda is asking, she's probably from Australia. I'm retiring with my spouse and relying on the superannuation income, which is Australian pension, private pension scheme. What is the minimum wage in France?
It changes all the time, but it's around 18,000 euros for a year. So you can have either a lump sum, either monthly installments. Of course, I
And
advise you to have more than that.
yeah, yeah. Well, obviously, the more the better. And is this the same? Like is it per person or do they apply some sort of a discount when it's a couple, for example?
No, it's per adult, so everyone needs to show that amount.
Okay, brilliant. Um, Malcolm is asking, is it easier to get a 5-year visa if you have a French property?
Um, Not really. Well, it doesn't really make a difference. It's not a condition. It's good because you will show that you have links with France, that you bought something in France, that you're stable here. But it's not a conditions, and they don't have to take this into consideration. But of course, it's a plus for citizenship as well, if you show that you have assets in France.
This one I've encountered a few times. Paul is asking, my birth certificate shows two middle names. Since my youth, I've always used only one. This includes my social security card, my passport, my driver's license, French visa, etc. In applying for a carte Vitale, Amélie, so which is French healthcare, insists that my application is not concordant with my birth certificate. What can I do about this?
Yeah, I have this problem all the time, especially with American citizens. I don't know your nationality, but maybe you are.
Yep, Paul is
Um,
American, yeah.
so what you need to do is, well, the easiest way would be to go to the American consulate in France or the consulate of your country and ask them for a document saying that you have the same identity, that this person is the same person as this one, even if you don't use the exactly same names. I have this problem sometimes with people that have one name on their passport and another one on the birth certificate. And in this case, we need an official document stating that this is the same person.
Okay, okay. Brilliant. Okay, so just to clarify this, Stuart is asking, is British, a wife is Swiss. Does this affect, well, the visa process or any other processes?
Yeah, you're lucky. If you are married, you can benefit from the EU residency card for family members, even if you're a Swiss citizen. So that's a good thing to know. It's a very protective residency permit. It's a 5-year residency permit right away. You have the right to work without having to ask for it or apply for it. So I advise you to do so.
Okay, brilliant. Oh, a good question. Not about transferring a residency, but if someone has another EU residency permit, does that allow one to travel without restrictions and to France?
You can travel to France without needing a visa, but you should stay in France for a maximum of 90 days and then go back to the country where you have your residency.
Okay, great. Well, I'm seeing the time. Okay, I'll try to pick like one or two questions quickly. Diane's asking, can you change from student to to a VLS-TS, basically?
Yes,
It
you can
is. Yeah.
change to another residency permit, but the VLS-TS is a visa. If you already have something, maybe it's a student visa or a student residency, you cannot go back to a visa. You have to apply for a residency. But yes, you can apply for another type of residency.
Yeah, just to clarify, because this is a confusion I'm seeing quite often. VLS-TS is the umbrella term for basically the renewable visa, and underneath you have all of the subcategories like students, visitor, and all the ones you've listed previously. Am I correct with this?
Yeah.
Okay, so far so good. Good. Okay, one last question, and sorry, we're gonna have to wrap it up, but um, what would be the requirements that are added up, suppose financially, per dependent, well, meaning child?
Yeah, that's a good question. For adults, it's for sure that you need to show the minimum wage, but we have seen some flexibility with children. They don't necessarily need to show exactly the same amount. Actually, nothing is written in the law or nothing is really written, so it depends a little bit of the consular practice, but I would suggest to show at least half of the minimum wage for per child. Of course, the best scenario would be to have the same amount for all the family members.
Hmm. Um, okay, two last questions, because could be very quick. Peter is asking a short high-level summary of key taxes, wealth tax and such. Okay, so well, income tax and such go to Eleonore and her team. It's not that different from the UK, for example. Again, well, bands and percentages are not exactly similar, but it will feel fairly similar. Wealth tax, we don't have this, and except for real estate portfolios, and from like 1.3 million with a deduction on the main property. But this all could change, from one year to another. We haven't voted the next year's budget, so we never know. But this is the very, very high level summary. A very personal question for you, Eleonore. Where are you based?
Oh, I'm in Paris.
Yeah, so it's not Emily in Paris. It's even better. Okay. Well, I think we've bombarded Eleanor with a lot of questions. She did great tonight. If you could like thank Eleanor for a time, I mean, if you think she's done a great job, some like thumbs up or something like this, I'm sure she'll appreciate. Eleanor, if people want to get in touch, they can follow up over email. We will share your details. Thank you for being with us this evening. It's been amazing.
Thank you, Fabien. It's always very nice to do those webinars with you. Thank you for inviting me again. And thank you, everyone, for all the hearts.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Again, every questions we couldn't answer. Sorry, there's been so many. Feel free to reach out in the follow-up email. We will be more than happy to answer each and every one of you. And obviously, you'll be able to reach out to Eleonore and the team. Thank you so much for being with us, well, this evening or whatever time is on your side of the planet. And see you all soon. Merci, Eleonore.
Au
Bye.
revoir.
Bye bye. Au revoir.